added the X-Men or like an extra group to help. No, I had the whole venging under control, and then they changed the meaning. Actually, speaking of 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about the season finale of Godfather of Harlem. With that said, y'all see Power pumping up new episodes? Come on, find out who's killed Ghost January 5. No.
I started watching that Watchmen show. It's really good.
It's good.
I'm only one episode in,
everybody says it's really good.
I saw a lot of good reviews on that.
Yeah. I only didn't jump right into it because people told me there were racist white people killing everybody.
Yeah, I think that's kind
of. And then it was like, all right, I'm tired of this undertone. I'm tired of the undertone in movie and film and cinema and television with the racist. I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, I get it.
But everybody keeps saying the show is great, so I mean, I'll check it out. But 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about the Godfather of Harlem finale, and I asked the question to the room, who killed Malcolm X? Because I genuinely was curious about it because of how it was being depicted on the show, how it's been depicted for most of my life, and I wanted to educate myself. And then Maul said something, and then the Nation of Islam got on my phone, and they asked for the opportunity to reply to what Maul said or what we said on this platform, and I thought that was only fair. And I thought, who better to educate me than the actual people themselves? So I'm going to call them now so we can have that conversation. Let's see here. Hold up. Huh? Where do you get these raw, unfiltered conversations?
Sure.
Only right here on the JBP.
The JBP.
I can't say Euro, right?
No, probably not.
Peace.
Yes.
Peace. This is Joe Budden from the Joe Budden Podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Hold on 1 second, brother. Give us 1 second to get our brother on.
No worries.
Brother Joe.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Glad you could be here with us. I'm sorry for any of the misunderstanding and the miscommunication that we've had in trying to set this up. We've been talking for a little while.
Yes, sir. It's all good. I'm glad. I'm honored to be able to share some space in it and at least some airtime now, and hopefully some physical time in the near future.
Definitely. I was just briefing our audience to how this conversation came about, which was the finale of The Godfather of Harlem that we spoke about a few podcasts ago, and I asked the question, who killed Malcolm X? To which one of my co-hosts responded, and then you guys heard it.
Right, that's right.
No, I'm giving the floor to you to educate me and the rest of my co-hosts.
Well, first, brother, like I said, I want to say to you that I'm very honored to be able to share some airspace and time with you and Brother Maul and Rory and all of your squad and team that's been working so diligent to increase your influence for positive change.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, of course, not just the Godfather of Harlem, but Betty and Coretta, the movie Malcolm X, and even the autobiography of Malcolm X. It is all of these have been displayed, and they really are the authorized King James version of Malcolm X that have been translated from former translations, diligently compared and revised. And this same recycled lie that it was the FOI that killed Malcolm, when the truth is it was the FBI that killed Malcolm. We've been fighting this for decades now, because every 10 years they reopen the 54-year-old wound. Anytime that there's a level of consciousness among our people or affinity toward the nation, they keep recycling this lie. And on our end, as a people, we have become such lazy learners that we don't do our own research. But if we would go through the Freedom of Information Act, pull up the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover, look at the goals and look at the memos of what they did in the nation and read about them celebrating the success of the assassination of Malcolm X, or look at the Gene Roberts, the brother that was his head of security, that talked Malcolm out of not having a search procedure for the first time in the history of Malcolm speaking at the Audubon Ballroom. He's the same man, Gene Roberts, that was in the Black Panther Party as an agent. And after Malcolm was shot, he came and gave Malcolm mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to make sure that he died. So it's so many different variables that can be unpacked if we would use some inference, deduction, reasoning, logic, and do a little research, and not allow ourselves to be subject to this. You know, as the movie Godfather of Harlem started off, it said events have been fictionalized for dramatic effect. Mm-hmm. And every time that anything has happened to any of our leaders, anytime they're depicted on the movie screen, that disclaimer should be in front of it, because we never get the real story. We get an edited, watered down, revised King James version of the history of our leaders, and this is the same for Malcolm X.
Do you believe that there's anything that the nation could do to step on the information that's being and that has been widespread for so many years?
Well, the call of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been now for over 30 years to open the files up. And right now, when you look at the files of Malcolm X and his assassination, they have, through what they call Section 7 in the FBI rules of conduct, they have the ability to withhold information. So there's so many, hundreds of pages of information that they have not released that would vindicate the nation. So all we can do is continue to shoot our defense out to stop the missiles from hitting us. Mm-hmm. But that, unfortunately, you giving us a platform on here today, on the phone, and then hopefully in the very near future, live and in person, where we can bring the stacks of the files and the books and the paperwork and be able to state the case. And let's try this thing in the court of public opinion, since they won't in the state or the federal court. Let's try it in a court of public opinion on a show like this. And let's set the record straight once and for all, and prove that Malcolm X was assassinated by the United States government. Only one man admitted to being a shooter, and that was Thomas Hagen, and he was not a member of the nation. The other two, Thomas 15X and Norman 13X, these brothers were not even there at the Audubon Ballroom and were innocent. And Thomas Hagen said that in his depositions, and he took the witness stand and said there were three other people, gave their names, but the FBI never went and arrested them because they were FBI agents working in concert to make sure that Malcolm was dead.
Wow.
Mo, you got anything? Anything you want
to
ask?
No, I mean, it's unfortunate. Like I said, the stories that I've been told throughout the years since I was a kid.
That many people have been told.
And that's why,
Yeah.
And that's why, again, and I want to apologize, for putting that out there. But that is the story that I grew up on and I was raised on. But again, like you said, it is important that we push the real narrative and get the real story out there, which is why this conversation is helpful.
Thank you, my brother. I always remember learning once about the only good thing I learned inside of the public school system was the statement by Adolf Hitler. He said that if you repeat a lie long enough, it will become the truth. Mm-hmm. And that was his way of telling all of the true historians in Germany and all of the anthropologists in Germany that knew then that the black man and woman were the original people of the planet that offered civilization to the world. But his motive was to promote white supremacy and make the world believe that blonde hair, blue-eyed, and pale skin was superior to black skin, black hair, and brown eyes. And he said, they asked him, how are we going to be able to prove this with all of this science that's working against us? He said, don't worry about it. If you repeat a lie long enough, it will become the truth. Mm-hmm. So they have Hollywood and the synagogue of Satan that runs Hollywood, these social engineers, these architects of confusion, these spin doctors in media, they have followed that Nazi program of Adolf Hitler to figure out how to repeat a lie long enough that it has become the truth to people, even though it's not the truth in reality.
With that said, brother, let me ask you how do you feel when you first let me ask, do you watch the Godfather Harlem or some of these other shows that push this, number one, and number two, if so, how do you feel when you see it?
I did watch it. I have been watching The Godfather of Harlem, and there's a lot of good positive ingredients, a lot of great leadership traits that you can see by the way they depicted Bumpy Johnson. However, I've also been able to read some of the book written by Bumpy Johnson's life, and the historical inaccuracies based off of what she said about her husband is so much different than what they have depicted in the series. So, he didn't meet Malcolm till 1963. It's just a lot of historical inaccuracies in it. But I do like the fact that all of our life we've been talking Capone, and we've been talking John Gotti, and we've been running around with Scarface posters, Scarface leather jackets. But we never even looked at a brother that was involved in striving to be independent, even in a criminal world, with the goal of using his power ultimately to free his family and to become a fuel source for revolution in the United States of America for the oppressed people. So in that sense, I thought it has a positive side to it. But on the other side, I'm so tired. I'm just going to tell you, I'm so tired of seeing the nation portrayed in such an inaccurate way. They got Malcolm walking with his shoulders all hunched over, hands in his pocket. We don't walk like that. We're quick thinking, fast moving, clean inside and out, right down to modern times. That's not how we function. Every time you see us in the movies, they got us walking around with funny looking haircuts and steak and shake bow ties on. So that I'm like, damn, man, damn, can y'all get something right in one of these movies? I'm like, man, can y'all at least go to the mosque and get a regular bow tie? Y'all have to go to Steak and Shake and take the waiter's bow tie?
Right.
But you know what? But this is why I'm glad. But this is why I'm glad. You say all this that you say, and I'm so glad that today, we have outlets where we don't have to have the narrative shaped for us. Number one, and number two, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for getting to me so fast when you heard whatever you heard on our last podcast, because I sincerely did want to be educated about this.
Right.
And I would love for us to sit down in the future in person so we could really get into this thing in depth. Like I said, the only reason I didn't have you here today was because we weren't prepared to accommodate you today. But this is a conversation that should be had, should be continued. And yeah, we don't have to allow Hollywood or none of them niggas to speak for us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're not there. That's not where we are today.
And I love that about you. And that is what all of your viewers and listeners love that about you, is that you have a level of courage and testicular fortitude to stand on what you stand on and say what you mean and mean what you say. So I can't wait to be in the studio with you and all of the brothers and the great staff you have. And let's lay this out and see if we can take the toxicity out of the environment that they're trying to put into the minds of a new generation that wasn't programmed by the old Malcolm X movie or wasn't a part of the conspiracy of the propaganda in the 65 magazines and newspapers that tried to make us look like we were the murderers of Malcolm X, when none, the minister's been accused, he's never been arrested or even investigated. They know that if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us, leave Malcolm alone, nobody would have messed with him. Mm-hmm. And if he would have been the one that organized a hit on Malcolm X on January the 4th of 1957, the FBI wiretapped the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's phones and got approval for 24-hour-a-day surveillance. Where's the tape? Where's the conversation where he said to do something to Malcolm? I looked at a book written by a sister called 7 Years in the House of Elijah, and she talks about a conversation she had with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is years after Malcolm had defected and been assassinated. He said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about Malcolm with tears in his eyes and said he loved him and that was his son, and he never wanted to see any harm come to him. You know why? Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we believe, comes in that line of divine as a messenger of God. And messengers of God have a different kind of sight than regular people. Regular human beings like us have two sights. We got insight looking into the present, hindsight and looking into the past. But a messenger of God has a third sight, and that's foresight. And he could look down the wheel of time and know that if they had let that brother live, then it's a strong possibility and a divine probability that he would have been on the battlefield back in the ranks of the nation as he was trying to make his way back into the ranks. Who knows? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm X after he told him, I apologize, I want to return. He said, well, you just got to go back, Malcolm, and put out some of the fires that you started. Who knows at the Audubon Ballroom if he was going to start putting out those fires? We never know because somebody opened fire on him. Not from the nation, not the FOI, but it was the FBI. So I can't wait, brother Joe. I can't wait.
Top of the new year. Top of the new year, January.
Man,
January, let's get together. Let's unpack this thing. I got to tell you, because I'm honest, I am going to continue to watch that show.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I am too. I am too. I am too, but I'm going to keep my firewall up.
Got you.
Right.
No, you got to.
Keep my firewall up and make sure that I don't let any viruses get into my computer system called my brain that have me thinking funny about my people. And a nation that's good for us. And I'm going to keep my eyes focused on the real enemy, which has always been the United States government, whether it was MOVE, whether it was the Tuskegee experiment, whether it was Black Wall Street, whether it was the Black Panthers, whether it was H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, Marcus Garvey, whether it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whether it's the minister today, they've always been the one that threw the rock and hid their hands. So I can't wait, Brother Joe. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you, Brother Maul. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yo,
and I look forward to being with you all in January 2020 vision. We're going to see things clearly.
Yes, sir. My brother, thank you so much for joining us, man. In January, we're going to get to it.
All right. Appreciate it. Peace.
Love. Peace. All right, let me toss it over to race relations.
Nope.
All right.
Sorry.
Rory Parks, y'all heard what he said.
React.
React.
He bodied that.
Yeah, I'm just glad me and Parks were here to help.
I had nothing. I had no help to offer except for my help.
That was dope. That was dope.
That was good.
That was dope.